Identity crises can be really scary. They can also be really freeing. If we get back to the simple tools of sleep, of counseling, of checking in with ourselves, of community, of service, of grounding, of mindfulness. So if you did a mental scan of your core identities that make up who you are, what would it be? Something can be a part of your story, but it doesn't have to be a part of your identity. The understanding of the self is the biggest component here. Welcome to the first official episode of the Mindful Malibu Morning. I am Casey Barneson, and I am so excited to kick off this new podcast and this new year here with you. This is a space for connection and conversation, a space for inspiration as we empower each other, find intention and purpose in our days by getting grounded and centered by nature, and having discussions that really challenge you and motivate you to live a life, a better life where you're prioritizing yourself and choosing personal motivation and self-discovery and growth. And this is important and exciting. And I am I'm so excited that you guys are here. For our first topic, I'm really excited to talk about the idea of identity, finding your authentic and true identity amidst external pressures and maybe not knowing exactly your place or who you are, and how do we show up in our day with the various roles that are placed upon us. And before we get into that, I want to take the opportunity to formally introduce myself and share this space with you. So again, my name is Casey Barneson, and I am grateful that you are here on this journey here with me. For the past 10 years, I have held a career in the field of education as a school counselor, specifically working with students in the college counseling setting. So I've worked with thousands of students as they prepare and plan for deciding where to go to college and preparing their applications and planning for that post-secondary step as they matriculate on to the next phase of their lives. In that space, inherently, I had really deep discussions with students about what their life's passions and purposes are. We talked about values. We really honed in on certain skill sets and applied what the student was really excited for in their life and their world and what they were ready to take on, and then applied that towards researching colleges and finding a good fit for them. And in the conversation of good fit, we talked about things like social fit and mental health. And a lot of these conversations I was finding was really applicable to my day-to-day life as an adult. I may not be going to college, but in my world, the new spaces that I enter, I'm always thinking about how do I support myself with a community so that I feel heard and connected, and how do I get myself involved in something so I have purpose and I can use my hobbies and interests for good, maybe an act of service so that I can give back to my community around me. And then lifelong learning. What do I want to study? What do I want to learn? So regardless if you are in college or out of college or well out of college, it doesn't matter. A lot of the work that I've done with these students, I felt was something that we all could use here. In the recent year, I made a drastic move to step outside of the school space. So I left the desk of 10 years, which was a little bit nerve-wracking, but I wanted to be able to push myself and find challenge and growth in something new. So after that time in the school setting, I put in my notice, and my family made the decision to move out to Malibu, and we found a new space full of a lot of land, a lot of challenge, and a lot of growth. And it's in this space that I really felt a deeper calling to be able to share my story with you and invite you into my world, and also share the knowledge and tools that I've gained for the past 10 years. So much of these applicable tools that I have used in worksheets and workshops with students, I'm finding I'm calling on my own advice, especially in this new adventure and this new challenge that I have taken on in this world. When our family first moved to a more serene, this remote setting, it was beautiful, but it was also really scary. It was very isolating. And a part of that move came a lot of questions of can I do this, and who am I, and What's my next role? I've always been in a field of profession, a very 9 to 5 type structured day. And this was a new frontier for me. And I was facing, essentially an identity crisis, searching for answers. And it was then that I started to walk around this property. And I walked down, and there's a bench just under the pepper trees. And I looked up, and I would see the trees sway side to side and kind of beg or ask for answers from the world around me. What's my purpose? What should I be doing? How do we work with the land and not against it? And in that space was really born this idea of the Mindful Malibu Morning, a place for you to kind of check in and connect before you begin your day, before you begin your next move. It's an opportunity to check in with yourself, to seek community and find gratitude in the things around you. And then take those very simple tools that I instilled in my students day in, day out of time management and organization skills and seeking passion, using my skills and my talents, and how can I apply that to my next job? So this land and this new move was something very near and dear to my heart in the why of wanting to begin this podcast and share this journey with you. Throughout my time, I had some pretty big challenges, very unexpected challenges. My mother passed away unexpectedly this past year. I had the birth of my son this year and a whole new world to navigate. And we left our community and started somewhere new. And while our land is beautiful and our time is precious, I am still human. And with that comes new growth and new challenges. And it is in the calming and the connecting where we hear our voices the loudest. Throughout my time in counseling, I published a book, The College Wellness Guide. And this was a book that I really felt needed to be written. I published it with Princeton Review because I felt like we were preparing for students to go to college. But once they got there, we kind of just let them go out the door. And a big piece that was missing was the wraparound support. The wraparound support for students in wellness, physically, mentally, and emotionally, and also socially. So how can a student instill and create community in a brand new place? How can a student manage their time and create systems to where they were able to go for a walk, go to the gym, get enough sleep, eat well, get enough water throughout the day? What were ways that they could learn and engage in curiosity without getting burned out? And how can a student find mental health services should they need it, as well as how do they stay authentic to themselves when they're exploring different majors and there's pressures maybe from peers and new environments. When I wrote that book, I spent a lot of time and research on mental health, a lot of time in research and finding out the amount of anxiety and depression and just general help that most people are dealing with. And a lot of these emotions can be normal. Anxiety and stress in some respect is a good thing. It's a very healthy thing. But allowing yourself, or rather finding and instilling the systems to help manage those emotions, allow them to come up, but not overwhelming. So when do you know too much is too much? Throughout that research, I really felt this deep calling that I wanted to just share more information. I wanted more people to know that anxiety and loneliness and getting connected can take some time and is very normal. It's very normal for people to feel kind of off kilter and have a moment in their period in their life where there's crisis. I felt this need to just find systems and tools to be able to not even combat, but embrace the challenge and have the tools to use and be able to go through the challenge. So after publishing that book, I went back to the school setting and started working with students and really started applying a lot of the tools and knowledge to them. And we weren't just having conversations about what college they wanted to go to, but we were talking about their value systems. We were talking about the counseling services that would be beneficial. We were talking about sleep before the next day they took an exam. And these are all things that are inherent to everyday life, that if we get back to the simple tools of sleep, of counseling, of checking in with ourselves, of community, of service, of grounding, of mindfulness. It is in those moments that we can learn to live our days easier, better and easier. And yes, we're going to have days that knock our feet off, and that's a day where we call it and say, okay, maybe tomorrow is a new day. But there are certainly tools that we can add to our tool belt before we even step foot in our day. Lastly, a part of my work is I became a certified practitioner in the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Personality Assessment. And what that taught me was kind of this final pillar of, as human beings, we are all human, but we have very different preferences. We have different personalities and different characteristics and different ways in how we engage with the world. We have different ways in which how we make decisions, and that can vary greatly. We have varying ways in how we give and receive information, how we get our energy throughout the day. And that was kind of that final piece for me that I realized you have lifelong learning, you have your mental health and wellness, and then you have this understanding of yourself. The understanding of the self is the biggest component here, because you can meditate, you can have a therapist, you can be in the right profession, but if you don't have a core understanding of how you show up in your day and what drains your energy, what gives you energy, if you don't have an honest view of yourself, then eventually you'll start to flounder. And it's really important to take that time to go inward. And part of this podcast is going to help you do that. I'm going to walk you through tools and walk you through essentially the workshops that I would do with my students. And I'm going to do it with you because I'm in this new frontier in a new land, essentially, without a community and without, with a new direction in my career. And I'm feeling like I could use this myself. So we will navigate this together as we develop and implement processes for us to understand ourselves and apply that to our day-to-day lives. So without further ado, let's get set in our grounding, and then we'll move on to our topic of identity. For our grounding today, I am looking at our hibiscus tree. As you kind of sit with me and as I talk through what I'm noticing, feel free to just kind of relax your body. If your legs are crossed, and cross your legs, and kind of maybe shake out any stress. If you're in your car, keep driving, but take a breath. Maybe take a look around you. Is there a stoplight coming up? Is there a business? What's the car like in front of you? Just kind of take notice of something so it catches your attention and gathers you in presence. And just take a nice deep inhale with me on a 4 count. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do that one more time. Take a nice inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's available for you, clench your fists really tight and let it go and shake it out. Maybe wiggle out some of your shoulders or any tension in your body, maybe in your neck and your jaw. Loosen up a little bit and just kind of allow yourself. It is my intention that the information that we receive today is rooted and grounded in the highest good. It is meant to purify our souls, to help uplift us as we make space for a better world for us. And again, I'm sitting by my hibiscus tree, which is beautiful and full, and there's pink flowers blossoming, and the sunlight is behind the leaves, kind of peering in and out. So if you're watching on YouTube, if the lighting goes back and forth, that is the nature reminding that it is here, and the sun is very present and moving. So I thank you for joining us. And with that, let's get into our topic of identity. Anyone else like an oat milk latte? Just that little one shot of espresso, nice warm oat milk latte steamed. It is my kryptonite lately. This is my second one of the day. So let's get into today's topic, one that is fundamental to how we show up in our daily lives, and it motivates our actions and our sense of self. I am talking about identity. So how do we define our authentic identity amidst all the noise, the expectations, and the external pressures that are placed upon us? We will explore the various aspects of our identities and how to break free from labels that are no longer serving us. We'll define what identity means for the context and purpose of this conversation and examine the key areas that can shape and heavily influence who we are and how we find the boundaries and the courage and the confidence to live our most authentic self. And we'll talk about the inevitable identity crisis that many of us can face. Hi, that's me. I've recently had one. By the end of the episode, I'll share an exercise with you that's very easy that just will help you categorize and hone in your identities and give you a clearer picture of your sense of self, maybe the areas that are overtaking or overriding and the areas that you'd like to pay a little bit more attention to, and how you can effectively manage any shifts that might be needed in order for you to manage a healthier identity and just show up in your day-to-day without those extra pressures and feeling overwhelming. So for today's conversation, I am defining identity as the roles in which we define ourselves. That's it. This can encompass beliefs, social constructs, characteristics, and it's a core part of us, and it can have many varieties. I think that that's important to key in here, is that we kind of feel like this identity. Who are you? What do you like? If you were on a date and someone asked you, or if you were writing an application to college, they will ask you. Some of us have an identity or a background that means so much to us. Their application would be incomplete without it. So share your story. And that's such a big essay to share. But there's a lot of different identities that we can have. And this is where that exercise later is going to come in. If we were to ask a student, what's your identity? Who are you? I would ask them, let's unpack the different areas and help you kind of define that. So we would look at their resume. I would pull out what's called a values exercise, and we would look at the different value systems and what are the things that are important to you in life. Is it family? Is it religion? Is it being creative? Is it being entrepreneurial? We would look at things like their culture, their background, and all those different constructs and all those different bubbles and microcosms of who you are as an individual. We would start to unpack that and label it and help them maybe choose the ones that shined the brightest to write about. So if you did a mental scan of your core identities that make up who you are, what would it be? So, he's a runner. She's a doctor. She's a dermatologist. He is a man of service. He's always helping in his church. She's an artist. She's a painter. She's a yogi. She is a mother. He is a son. So identities are really on a spectrum. Some are concrete and then others are very malleable. So if you think of the concrete identities, these ones are relatively fixed. So for example, I'm a mother. I have a son. If you're a daughter, if you come from a particular background, these are real and they are fixed in the sense that I am a mom, I have a son, that's not changing. But the weight that we assign them is the important component that I want you to pay attention to here. How we engage with our reality day to day is really up to us. So yes, I'm a mother, but it doesn't define my entire being. Yes, it takes up a majority of my day, but apart from that, I have instilled systems to be able to allow space for me to be the other areas and identities that I want to be. So I'm a wife, I'm a professional, I'm a teacher, I'm a friend, I'm a runner. Those are all other aspects of me being a mother, for example. So think about the concrete identities in your life, and some of them you might think about and cringe right away. Some of them you might be really proud of. So just kind of take note of, as you think about your different concrete identities, how you feel on the inside. And a part of that mental scan is how much of your daily actions, choices, and your drive and motivation are tied to that identity. The other form of identities can be very malleable. So these can be shaped by your upbringing, by social constructs, expectations, and these are scripts that we might have. The malleable identities can also be things like your hobbies and interests. They could be a career, for example. Most people shift their careers multiple times throughout their lifetime. And some scripts of who we are can be healthy and some can be very unhealthy. And this is really where that work comes into play, where we get to determine kind of the malleable identities that we want to keep hold on to, or maybe we need to shift. Maybe this is something that I have labeled myself as because it's been a social construct that I just am assuming should be a piece of my identity. So in this exercise, it's a very simple exercise. And if you have access to a pen and a piece of paper, that would be really helpful. And again, if you're in the car, you can always pause this, replay it later, or just simply do kind of a mental scan. It's very simple. It's what you have kind of done as a kid, where if you're watching on YouTube, I have a paper where in the center you have yourself and you draw a circle. And coming off of those, you have different lines. So coming off of those lines, you have extra circles. And these are things like your family, your culture, your religion. It could also be things like education, hobbies, interest, your character. So each circle will have its own component. So if I have a circle for family, who am I? A mother, a daughter? Am I a cousin, a wife, a friend, a husband? In my career, am I a banker, an accountant? I'm an educator. I'm a counselor. Am I a homemaker? In my character or my hobbies and interests, am I a painter? Am I athletic? And within each of those, I want you to get more specific. So if you say you're athletic, what does that mean? I am a surfer. I am a triathlon runner. I am a sommelier. I am someone who loves food. I'm someone who loves cooking. I like trying new recipes. I'm a baker. Get as specific as you can. As you're writing through these different bubbles and getting more specific, again, I want you to pay attention to that feeling. If they feel really heavy, like, oh, gosh, I've got to write this down. This is something that I just feel like is a part of my life and I can't change. And I'm resentful. I don't love it. Pay attention to that. And the ones that just flow, that you're just so excited about. Like for me, I write, I get creative. I love it. I buy different journals. Like this is a core piece of who I am. Pay attention to that one as well. And you can also even color code them. So maybe circle the ones in green, the ones that are serving you, and the ones in red or the ones in yellow that maybe we need to pause and caution and pay attention to. So the ones that feel heavy, how concrete are they? And then what boundaries and shifts can you do to either allow this to be a core piece of who you are, or is it just something that you come from, a background, but maybe it has nothing to do with your day-to-day. So maybe it doesn't define who you are. It's a piece of your world, but it's not definitive of how you would describe yourself, of your character. If it's a career that you feel like is no longer serving you, again, maybe this isn't a piece of your identity. How can we find the good in that? It is a paycheck, a placeholder. This is something that I can do that keeps food on the table for my family while I explore something else that I want to do. So identities can be a part of your story, but not your whole story. So let's kind of say that one more time and summarize it in a way that we can digest and make better sense of it. Something can be a part of your story, but it doesn't have to be a part of your identity. You have the power to decide the circles, the buckets, the areas that define yourself. And if you have something like a health issue, or you come from a cultural background, or you feel like it's just a piece of you that is concrete and not changing, how do you change that story for yourself where it is a piece of you, but it's not the whole part of you. How much attention we give to something is really important here. And in thinking about gravitating towards an area of our lives that we get excited about. So right now I feel like I'm in an identity crisis, but I do know that there are core things in my being that are a part of me that I gravitate towards. I am a mother. I am a writer. I am curious and I love lifelong learning. Those are cores to my identity that I can come back to and really lean into while I figure the rest out. I think a lot of us show up in our lives and we think, okay, this is it. This is who I am, end of story. And we forget how much power that we have to show up in our day-to-day and engage in the world around us and make the choice to be a part of our world in a way where we are the driver, in a way where we can choose where we place our attention to. We can allow something to be a placeholder for a moment, but reminding ourselves that maybe this moment shall pass. And then paying attention to things like if you have a limiting belief because of a construct that you've had since childhood or a story that you've been told, you have the power to change that story if you can pinpoint that story. If you can even just be aware that you have now been living a life with limited beliefs, even just being aware of that gives you the power to pay attention and to start to shift that reality for yourself. So as you look at your paper with your identities, I really want you to pay attention to the ones that are serving you, the ones that you feel are leaving a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth. How can you have the power to shift and show up in your day to change that narrative for yourself? And I want you to ask yourself these questions in addition to this exercise. What motivates me? I know that's a really big question. That might be your family. You might be motivated to make more money. You might be motivated to live a healthier life. But I think this is really important because if you look at your identities and how much time you spend thinking and serving in certain areas, it can really cut into your time of what motivates you to do something new and different in a day, or what motivates you to show up in your day can allow you to kind of reflect on how you spend your time in your day, if that makes sense. Ask yourself, what am I allowing? What are the ways that we can be true to ourselves? What can I control and what am I working towards? These are the pieces that are big. Is, a lot of times our days just kind of happen and when we're not really taking the time to sit back and think about what's in my control. How can I show up for myself today? By listening to this podcast and by getting this far in this episode, I can guarantee that you are choosing yourself and you are showing up in your world even just a little bit more than maybe you did yesterday. So kudos to you for doing that. That's incredible. Lastly, if you feel like you are just having an identity crisis, like I'm just kind of floating in the air, I don't know who I am, and again, just me being in this new community without my friends and being a little far from my family and isolated up, in this mountainside, and I just left my career and I just lost my mom. Identity crises can be really scary. They can also be really freeing. I know maybe that doesn't make sense, but if you allow yourself to simplify the bigness of it, you don't have to figure everything out all today, all right now, but go back to those core things. So when I was working with students on their college essays and they had to answer that really big question of who are you, who am I, and present it to a college, we would go back to very simple, granular questions. So what skills are you good at? Are you good at math? Are you good at English? Are you good at writing? Are you good at drawing? Are you good at asking open, big life questions? Or are you more analytical? What values do you hold to be really important? I value creativity. I value freedom in my day. I value the ability to have financial freedom. I value friendships and connection. And then what characteristics do you hold in yourself? I'm funny, I'm carefree, I'm athletic. Just kind of going back to those simple traits and writing those down and leaning in to the areas that are really working for you. So if you don't have your career figured out right away, but you are a really good parent right now. Lean into that. Lean into what feels good and connect with something greater than yourself. I cannot preach to you how much this has helped me and just helped others in my family and my world and my students that would say I would go on a walk and I would just put my AirPods in and zone out. Or Miss Barnes and I drove down to the beach and I looked at the ocean and I just kind of let go. It's when you allow yourself to let go and connect with something greater that oftentimes the answers and those little aha moments and insightful things pop up and it gets you motivated. Seek a mentor or grab a coffee with a friend, someone that you respect and value. Gaining some confidence and wisdom from someone else is a reminder, again, that we're all human. Oftentimes I would meet with my mentor and she would remind me of, things that she was nervous about. And I couldn't believe that she was nervous about, presenting at a conference, or if I knew something that she didn't. And, it's really nice to gain just some wisdom and have someone that you trust that you can grab a coffee with, go for a walk, and someone that you admire to kind of help you through this, and do something that's new and challenging. This doesn't have to be really big or scary. It could be learning how to bake bread. It could be trying a new recipe. It could be go diving in the ocean for the first time. I find that if you do something new and challenging, you remind yourself that you can, and that what we never knew becomes second nature. So if you're having an identity crisis, I recommend doing any of those things to help you. And just in closing with you guys, I am, again, so grateful. I encourage you to check in with yourself, be kind to yourself, and remind yourself of your power. Remind yourself that you are control. You are in this beautiful space. And I am so excited that you are here on this journey with me. Until the next time, enjoy your day. Follow, like, and subscribe the Mindful Malibu Morning podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and follow on Instagram at the Mindful Malibu Morning.